Welcome to the Echoes of Alchemy podcast. My name is Jay Robinson, and I'm coming to you from Lotus Sound Studio in beautiful downtown Collingwood, Ontario, Canada, where we provide sound baths, sound training, day retreats, yoga nidra, kirtan, and so much more. As grounded, passionate, and dedicated students of ancient and modern sound practices, our team supports yogis, spiritual practitioners, meditators, musicians, artists, and those looking to amplify their intuition, inner power, and purpose with our one-of-a-kind, unplugged gatherings and sound bath artistry training. Our mission is to inspire a holistically infused lifestyle, utilizing natural, highly effective, and accessible sound wellness practices, and to contribute to the health, happiness, and spirit of our community. In this episode, Justine and I are speaking with Jake McArthur, poet, playwright, actor, and author, and the creator of the live show, as well as the accompanying book of the same title, Opening to the Mystery, Intimate Spiritual Experiences with My Daughter That Caused Me to Wonder. And through Jake's live show, as well as his book, he expresses really beautifully his experiences ongoing with his daughter Erica, who passed in the year 2000 in a car accident. And Justine and I are really grateful to have attended Jake's live show recently, and it was absolutely incredible. We're so grateful to have him on the podcast. We also talk about Jake's mantra recitation practice, which he's been doing for 25 years, and his weekly kirtan practice. He comes to our Tuesday morning kirtans at Lotus Sound every week, so we get to talk about that as well. Really happy to have Jake on the podcast, and hope you'll enjoy. Elevate your understanding of sound and become a beacon of transformative vibration for yourself and others with the Lotus Sound 3-day sound immersion training, deep dive into sound bath artistry. We have sessions open for registration August 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and November 15th, 16th, and 17th. Visit lotussound.ca/sound training and join us for one of our upcoming 3-day training immersions. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you will enjoy it. Be sure to follow, rate, and share. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode of Echoes of Alchemy with Lotus Sound. Today we're talking with Jake McArthur, and we're so honored to have Jake on the podcast. Jake sees himself today as a creator and performer, manifesting as a poet, playwright, actor, safe space listener, and celebrant for weddings and end-of-life ceremonies through Collingwood Celebrancy. Jake has 2 children, Colin, an osteopath in Collingwood, and Erica, who died in a car accident in 2000 at the age of 23. He is also grateful to be a grandfather to 4 children aged 12 to 16. Jake has been intimately involved with the subjects of death and grieving since Erica's death, studying for a Doctor of Ministry, volunteering with hospice and the Alzheimer's Society, facilitating death cafes, and creating and performing his show, Opening to the Mystery, based on the book of the same name, relating experiences with his daughter. Music has played a significant role throughout Jake's life. Although he rues that has never included learning to play an instrument, he has been chanting as a personal practice for the past 20 years and has become an avid regular participant in our Lotus Sound Kirtan sessions on Tuesday mornings. And we're so honored to have you with us on the podcast, Jake. Thank you so much for being with us.
Jay, the honor is all mine. I'm really delighted to have this opportunity to be with you guys and to tell a little bit about my story.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, we, as you know, Jake, we were blessed to be able to attend your play a couple of weeks back at the Shoshone Temple, and it was so moving. And I know for me, I was really drawn to the way that you shared your story and how it was just so relatable. I think anybody can relate to the way that you're describing this really profound experience that you're continuing to have and to share with people. And it's just really beautiful. So would you be kind enough to share a bit about your daughter's story, your inspiration for your offering, your book, and your play?
Love
Opening
to
the Mystery.
So, as you mentioned, I have 2 children, and Erica is 2 years younger than Colin. And as I say in my show, and as I've said to Colin, as much as I love him and was thrilled on the day of his birth, I was beyond thrilled on the day of Erica's birth at the thought that I had a daughter as well as a son. She and I were very close. We shared lots of common interests in terms of writing and poetry and spirituality. And when I left their mother, when Erica was 10, Colin 12, it threw everybody into a gigantic amount of chaos. And I take responsibility for a large part of that chaos, if not all of it. Erica then had a really troubled teen life. She did all kinds of crazy things that no parent would want their child, to be doing. But there it was, and she was living that out, and we would keep seeing her off and on, and then lose track of her off and on until she got married at the age of 21, a marriage that didn't last long, and to our great fortune, led to her coming home to live with us for the last 8 months of her life. And so she was working as a nanny for a family in Palgrave, near where we lived, and they went off on holiday to Horseshoe Valley Resort. She went with them and had a night off on a Tuesday night, went into town with a bunch of her pals who'd come up from Toronto, and wisely took taxis into Barrie and did some bar hopping and had some fun. Somehow they got home, and somehow, unbeknownst to me, nobody's been able to explain this, how Erica ended up in her car driving with a young man actually from Collingwood, who I don't believe she'd ever met before. And I have a sense that maybe she was thinking she was driving him home. I'm not sure. But shortly out of the Horseshoe Valley Resort, their car veered off the road, and the two of them were killed instantly. And so, the book and the show goes through quite a few details in terms of what happened as a result of that immediately. I won't go through that other than to say that her birth was beyond amazing, and her death has set my life on a course that I might not have dreamt it was going to go on. And in the wake of her dying, I just had an ongoing series of experiences, beginning, just a day or two, or a week or two after her accident. And as a writer, I chose to write those experiences down for nobody's purposes other than my own. And then, 2019, I was invited to speak at a spiritual workshop, and with no prescription as to what I was to talk about. And I said, well, how about if I tell some of these stories? And that led to me publishing the book and creating what initially was just a storytelling event, but has subsequently become a show. So maybe I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah.
As you can sense, I could talk about it forever.
Sure. Yeah, and being at your show a few weeks back, one of the things that really jumped out was just how it opened up everybody who was there to connect with their experiences and to share. So do you find that when you're offering the play, that there's a lot of that type of sharing afterwards? It opens people up to their experience with grief?
It's interesting, Jay, because I would say when I started this, my real intention was to follow through on an admonition from Erica through a medium, that I was to get out and start telling these stories and let the world know that there was something else as a part of existence. And so I saw that as my purpose. But after the first show, it became clear to me that actually probably the purpose was opening other people up, not telling the stories, and using the stories as a way to move in that direction. And so from the very beginning, we've had a question and answer period at the end of each show. And I have come to love that part of the event. I love telling the stories. I love saying Erica's name. As you know, I sing a song partway through. I love doing that. I love reading poems. But what I am most moved by when the evening is over, is just seeing, listening, hearing, feeling the impact that some of those stories might have had on people who've been in the audience, in the community of the experience. As you know, I'm not out proselytizing about something that I think I know. I only know my experiences. Mm-hmm. I do not know what is behind them. And that's why the book is called, and the show is called Opening to the Mystery, because it remains a mystery for me. And while that would be potentially frustrating for some people, I find that absolutely perfect. That it's a mystery. Maybe it's a mystery to be discovered at some point. Only time will tell.
And I really love how you've left it open like that, and it makes it so accessible for so many more people to come. And that question and answer period was a very beautiful space. You could tell people felt very safe to share. And also it built connection in like a moment with everyone in the room. And it was very heart-filling moment to watch people be able to express themselves and to share that expression without any judgment. You really do hold a very safe and nurturing space within that, even though your own, I'm sure, a very emotional, obviously it's a very emotional thing for you to share, and you do a beautiful job doing that.
Well, I appreciate all of what you just said, Justine. It's emotional for sure. How could it not be that? But it is mostly just a sense of honoring, of honoring Erica, of honoring her life, of honoring her death, and of honoring whatever that mystery might be about, and honoring those who are at a place where they either need to or want to or can access whatever that might be for them.
Yeah, the vulnerability, because the grief is so difficult for so many of us to express and to talk about. We hold on to it for so long. And another thing really, really beautiful about your offering is that you show your vulnerability. You share it so poetically and with this heartfelt intention that it made it feel much more open for people to share what can be such a hard thing to talk about. So,
Jay, I mean, I grew up a jock, a really macho guy. I was raised to be that way, and I enjoyed wearing that mantle. And vulnerability was the last place that I believed I was allowed to go.
Right.
And in this later stage of my life, I think it was happening even before Erica's accident, but certainly it just accelerated immensely subsequent to it. Was the notion that by allowing myself to be vulnerable, I actually help myself get stronger. I do not get weakened by it, I get strengthened by it. And in some respects, that's not the primary purpose of the show, but I would hope that people can get that here's this guy who's being vulnerable, and he doesn't look like he's shrinking away from life or from those experiences. And if they're getting that, well, then I think that's real. I think it's really important if it's important. It's important to me.
That's very beautifully said. Yeah.
Sure. And you open your play with a song, and I'm thinking of you is the song.
Well, I don't actually open the show with that. It comes up quite early.
Right.
Yes. And so that, for me, is one of the more fascinating of the experiences I had. I mean, the brief summary is I was out on my deck in Caledon with my good dog, Buddy, and we were sitting there. I was sipping wine, waiting for the barbecue to warm up. And through some experiences I won't go through the details of, all of a sudden, after having looked out at a tree that had been planted in Erica's honor, all of a sudden I just said the words, yeah, honey, I'm thinking of you. And with that, this music just started to fill me. Um, I don't know where it came from. It had an immediate sense of being like a Paris street scene is the best description I can give it. Like I'm thinking about it from a movie, and hearing an accordion or a violin or a harmonica or all of the above. And the tune seemed well, it was a very simple tune, but it seemed incredibly clear and crisp to me. It wasn't like it was just sort of somehow mumbling its way through the ether. It seemed bang. And not too long after the tune was there, all of a sudden, some opening words were there, and I could not get that earworm out of me. Well, I wasn't trying to, but it would not leave. And as time went on, I mean, over days, at least days, maybe a few weeks, as I was walking the dogs, I'd be singing that song constantly. I'd be singing a song constantly wherever I was. When I'd be walking them, and other lyrics would come to me. I would start filling out what started to sound like a song. A refrain came to me, and one of the very interesting things for me was that as a poet who knows his limitations of memory, and if an idea or a thought or an image or a word comes into my mind, if I don't write it down, it's almost always gone, and it feels like it's gone forever, whether it is or not. And so I was getting this message: don't write this song down, which seemed very strange to me. And it wasn't like this was a word; this was quite a few words. But anyway, I didn't until one day I did. And then when I actually saw it on the screen of my computer, it really felt like it had a wholeness to it, with the exception that I thought it needed a finale. And so I created the finale. But I have to say, I don't believe that I consciously worked at creating the other verses. On some level, perhaps I did, but I wasn't conscious of doing that. The last piece of that story I'll tell you is that when I was talking with a friend of mine who had agreed to record it with me, he being a guitarist, I sang it to him a cappella, and he instantly said to me, "Oh, that's a French waltz." And I'm thinking, Paris street scene. And then that connected back to, and I'd already made this connection, that Erica had a past life regression done at a spiritual retreat she'd gone to. And she was placed in France during the war and had a relationship with a fighter pilot who'd been shot down. And so,
wow,
in those earlier days, I was still kind of, what could all of this possibly be about? But I felt so connected to her. And there was something about that song. It continues to haunt me to this day. And I didn't sing it this morning because I wasn't out walking, but almost every morning when I'm out walking, at some point, I will be singing at least part of it. Yeah.
Well, so it naturally had a spirit of its own. This song, was essentially working through you to be discovered, so that you could share it with others. There's so many different angles.
And I'd never thought I would ever, be singing it for anybody else.
Right. Yeah. Right.
I did want to have it recorded because I thought that'd be a way for me to have my voice absorb, the voice holding on to the song. But beyond that, I have shamelessly sung parts of it or all of it in every show that I've done, and that's very satisfying for me. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's for you, right? It's like a lot of our practices too. The chanting, sound that Justine and I do. Starting it as your own practice, and really connecting with it, and then sharing it with others is really probably seems to be the most powerful way to share these things that have worked so well for us in a practice sense. So it makes sense.
It comes from a deeper place then, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just, and it can be very comfortable, very nice on a social level, but it doesn't have that same depth to it. I think that's a great observation. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. And similar, you said earlier about the experience. It's, you're having experienced this song for so long and then sharing it. It's, again, so much more potent. Same with our practices. We connect with them on a personal level, and then sharing them with others really encourages others, but also will connect to people's hearts, I think, in a much more direct direct way. And we've spoken a number of times because you come to almost every one of our Tuesday morning kirtans, which is so amazing. We love having you with us. And we spoke a few times about mantra. Do you want to share any bit of your personal mantra practice beyond?
Love to.
Mm-hmm.
Love to. So I just have to say that with regard to any practice, I'm not a disciplined practitioner. And so things just, when they're there for me, they're there for me. Chanting has been just about the most consistent practice that I have had. And in part, that goes back to my love of music generally and of sound. And maybe I'll speak to that in a bit. But let me just say that at least, it might have been 25 years ago. I thought it was 20 years ago, but it might have been 25 years ago. I first got exposed to Deva Premal and her Gayatri mantra. And the first moment that I heard it, I just started resonating. Like, now, I hear lots of nice music. I love nice songs, and I resonate to various kinds of music in different genres. But I just, holy mackerel, what is that? And the person who was playing it explained to me what that was. And I said, oh, can we listen to that again? And so we did. And I did endeavor. So I got a written out version of it, and which is, I sort of have to see the words. It's one of the things that I love about kirtan, where you have the song sheets, because if you can't see those words, it's hard to know what to hang the vowels on.
Right.
And so it's very helpful seeing the lyrics, and I learned them very quickly. And then just started wherever I was, walking with the dogs, driving in my car. I found it an amazing calming effect when I would be in downtown traffic in Toronto. Just start chanting, and traffic didn't seem to be as bogged down as it had previously. So I loved the Gayatri mantra, and I love her voice. I love Deva Premal as a singer. Another chant that I learned from her was the chant Gate, which I love the sound of, but it's also about being gone, being really, really gone, which has an appropriateness within the context of what we're talking about today, and in Erica's story. And so I would say the vast majority of days when I'm out walking, I am spending some of the time chanting. When we moved here to Collingwood, and I'd be walking the dogs early in the morning along the bay, I would be singing some popular song, usually on the way out on the walk, and on the way back, I would be chanting. That was sort of my pattern. But there is no pattern anymore. It's just it's whatever piece is there in my head is what I chant. But Gayatri mantra, I suspect I have chanted, it could be thousands of times. It's certainly many, many hundreds of times. And it never ceases to catch me. It never ceases to sound lovely to me, even through my voice. My voice is irrelevant. It's just the sound of it and the rhythm of it. I did sort of get the understanding of it. I got a translation of it, but that was kind of I'm gonna stick with the sound, which is pretty much what I do in kirtan as well, as I am mostly focused on the sound, although I do love the explanations that you all give for what's behind the mantra. And if I, without knowing or without worrying about specific translation, if I can get the gist of it, then it does take on a different dimension, I have found. Yeah.
Right.
And I love how you're sharing sort of like you're not focused on your voice. And you spoke of that as well in singing your song that came through you for Erica as well, that you're just, connecting with the music and the words and the songs, but not worrying so much about the sound of your voice, just using it as that healing tool that it is. Although I love Jake's voice, everyone. He is this amazing bass voice, this just that lower end, which I feel like I can feel your voice resonating through my body when you're part of
Oh,
of the
wow.
group chanting. So I really enjoy that very much. But yeah, just wanting to point out how you've really nailed that, not worrying about your voice and just allowing it to play through you.
I've accepted that it is what it is. It's okay. I'm not, it's not like chalk or your fingernails on a chalkboard, but I'm also not going to win any Grammys. And so I fully accept my place somewhere in between,
Your
those two
voice is
extremes.
rich and full and bassy, and I love it. So,
Contribute so much.
Okay.
I love the too, because you're so connected to the feeling of these things, the song, the mantra. It's as you said, more about the feeling of it or the words instead of the meaning. And we typically, a lot of times these days, we're so analytical with everything. We need to know everything. We spend so much time digging through, the details. Sometimes we can miss the gold. So with chanting,
Absolutely.
mantra, kirtan, just connecting with the sound and not starting out with being worried about the meaning is definitely the way to go. So it's so amazing that you've just kind of naturally come to this kind of flow with the mantras in your chanting practice. It's really, really nice.
Well, I'd have to say that it hasn't just been an instant thing, right?
Right.
Like years ago, I lived a very analytical life. I lived with strategy and making things happen and all of that kind of stuff. And I decided that wasn't serving me at all. In fact, it was really getting in the way of me living my life. And I would say it probably started before Erica's death. But when Erica died, then I said, "Come on, man, it's only time to just go with what feels right and what's showing up for you in a positive way." And so rather than worrying about the voices we were just talking about or worrying about the meaning specifically, and like I'm a smart enough guy, I can learn those things, but that isn't, as you say, Jay, that's not where the gold is. The gold is in the experiencing the wholeness of all of that, whether that's in chant, whether that's the beat of the tabla, or whether it's the beauty of somebody's voice, or whether it's the communal voices around me, or my own hearing my own voice, whatever it is, and it's different things at different moments. They all are part of a large weaving, if you like, of the experience. And I don't know how it could get better than that.
Totally. And you've also, we spoke briefly a couple times about you were sharing, I think you shared, was it the Gayatri mantra with one of your grandkids, was it?
Yes.
So you're kind
Yes.
of, do you want to speak about, are you able to speak about that
Oh
for a
no, I'd
second?
love to. I'd love
Yeah,
to.
nice.
She actually would have been at Kirtan this morning, except it just wasn't an appropriate day for her to come. But she is going to come the next time. She doesn't live in Collingwood, but most all of the time. But when she's here next, she's going to come.
Amazing.
And I pick her up in Orangeville every couple of weeks. She's coming home from where her dad lives, where she lives with her father, and I pick her up in Orangeville and then bring her up here. And when she's the sweetest thing, and so she, every time we get in the car, "So Grandpa, how are you? And what's been happening in your life?" Like, she's that kind of kid. Not everyone is. This is my experience. And so one day I just said to her, "Well, I've been chanting. I've been going to a group and I've been chanting." "Oh, that sounds interesting. What's that?" And so we sort of went from there. I said, "Do you want to hear a chant?" And so I sang her maybe I sang her the Gayatri Mantra twice. And she said, "Oh, that's really amazing." I said, "Well, do you want to actually hear somebody who really knows how to sing it?" And so I pulled over and I pulled up David Pamal's version, and we listened to that. And so she's 12, right? Sorry, she's 14 now, but she was 13 when that first happened. And she listened through the entire thing, didn't move, didn't look like she wanted to look at her phone, like she was just sitting there listening. And it ended, and she said, "Oh my, that was so beautiful." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you want to hear it again?" She said, "Oh yeah, can we?"
Oh, wow.
And so we listened to, and that version I think goes for like 10 minutes or 12 minutes. So of our hour drive from Orangeville to Collingwood, almost half of it was taken up listening to the Gayatri Mantra. And so then on subsequent trips, I sent her the lyrics. I sent her a link to Deva's version. And the next time we got together, she could sing it and she knew all the lyrics by heart. I thought, this is the real deal. Like, she's just not being a sweet grandchild. Like, somehow it is speaking to her as well. And so that's continued. We haven't done quite as much commuting together recently, and so we haven't been doing as much of that. But we have talked about her coming to Kirtan for a couple of months now, and it's just finding the right time when she's here. Normally she's not here on Tuesdays, so during the school year, so it's problematic. But during the summer, you're going to meet her.
Yeah, we'll have to do the Gayatri.
Well, she'll hear a different version of it because you do a different version of it, right? Yeah. Which is also good. But that's been good for me too, by the way, is hearing it to a different tune and realizing, well, the tune is just the tune. And any of those notes can change if they're the right ones, then perfect. And so, Devon is her name, and you'll love her as much as she'll love you guys.
Amazing. Look forward to that.
Yeah.
So you've, as we mentioned, you've been coming to Kirtan for almost every Tuesday since we've been in our new space, so about a year-ish, give or take. And are you able to speak a little bit about just what that's what kind of effect that's had on your life outside of the Kirtan, or how it's brought any kind of richness maybe, or grounding maybe to your day-to-day life?
Right. I'd love to talk about that. Having chanted on my own for many years, having listened to Kirtan, not listening to Krishna Das CDs, I always wondered what it would be like. Chanting had seemed like a really lovely personal thing to do on my own. I've come to also love community in a variety of ways, but as an introvert, I need my own space and time quite a bit. But when I found out that you were holding Kirtan and I came, I have to say I was just blown away. In part, I think, my goodness, there are real harmoniums here being played. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
and gosh, Jay's playing tablas. Oh my God, right here in front of me. It's amazing. And then this lovely community. I think the first few times I came, there weren't all that many people there, but it was so clear that everybody was so into the process. What I sensed from the very outset, and it's true to this morning when I was with you, that there is zero ego in that space. From you three, along with Kathy, you two, and Kathy, from the members that I feel, that I'm a part of that community. It just feels like everybody's just coming with who they are, with what they have to offer, and chant. There's, at least from my ears, as you know, I've only recently gotten hearing aids, so my hearing is improved now. But from the very outset, I never heard anybody trying to dominate the voices. I never heard anybody. It just seemed like everybody was just taking their place, offering their voice into the space, and I've loved that. Really, I'm not sure I've actually even thought about it until just answering that question right now. But that's something that I really do love. That there's just this wholeness made of all of these parts, none of which is more equal than others. As I've learned the mantras, I am most content is the word that comes to mind. Maybe most engaged when I'm able to close my eyes and just be in that space, looking at nothing, hearing only the sounds, wherever they're coming from, you, from fellow members, my own voice, whatever, hearing the instruments, hearing the voices. And sometimes transcendent sounds like a pretty highfalutin word. I'm not sure that's exactly what it is, but it feels like there's times when there's nothing there. Like it's just kind of
Yeah.
floating on top of all of that. I wouldn't say that happens most of the time, but it does happen some of the time. But regardless, just sitting with very little stimulation other than the oral and sonic experience is it's so calming and refreshing. Let me say that. Sometimes it's very exciting. Like there was one piece this morning when I really felt my energy. There could really feel the rhythms really rocking, and that's also very nice. But as I think I said to you, Jay, this morning, there were a couple of chants that were just done slower than I remember them being done,
Right.
and that was awesome.
Yeah.
It just allowed for an even deeper grounding that that occurred. I love it when we do call and response. I think that's really nice. I've loved in the stage of my life being led. As someone who did quite a bit of leading earlier in life, I love it when somebody else is just taking the lead, doing it all, and saying, "Okay, now it's your turn," or whatever. And I think there's a real beauty to that. And then I love hearing when the rhythm picks up and you come in with tablas, and all of a sudden now I'm feeling like, we've had our intro. Now we're starting to move. And then when all of the voices enter in, it's just so beautiful, so beautiful for me, and I'm sure for others.
Yeah, we're so grateful for those mornings and to share that. And I think we would agree that it feels like when we're doing the kirtan that it's just kind of happening and we're just present, doing what we do. It's really has kind of a life of its own, and it really is dictated on the energy of the day or how we're feeling too. Like some things will be slower or faster, and it's nice when they all of the things kind of align for all of us. Like the day might, it's pretty hot out, pretty humid day today. It's kind of sluggish, and so we have these slightly slower chants that just naturally happen. I think it kind of connects us all to the space and time that we're sharing as well.
Right.
But you want to add anything to that?
Well, one of my favorite parts is that passing of the thinking mind into the, sitting in that emotional mind, and that sort of reminiscent when you were saying looking for something about like transcendence perhaps, but it's not quite that, but that blissful space, like in that subtle part of my mind it's beautiful. Sometimes, honestly, Jake, it's hard to remember to play because I could lose myself on top of the song as well.
Well, and how appropriate is that? It's not like, I mean, you guys are creating the space and you take leadership roles, but you're participating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally. Oh,
yeah.
Right in there. And so I wanted to speak to you too, as we're on the kind of the musical musical kind of topic here, just about, and in regards to, this ties back to as well, of course, the song that came to you. And as when we were at your play, another thing that kind of dawned on me is just like, my connection, for instance, with my dad who's passed, and songs that I hear that immediately his spirit is back with me. Like his, it's there. So there's a couple. House of the Rising Sun is probably the most vivid one that reminds me of him. I used to like play guitar every morning. I'd wake up and I could hear him. He wasn't a professional musician, but every morning his practice was, he'd make a coffee and he'd play fingerstyle guitar, and the song that he played a lot was House of the Rising Sun. So I always, whenever I hear this song, I have my dad in my heart. And I'm sure Justine has, I mean, your dad listened to some pretty good music that we all
I was brought up with good music, but I'd say Bob Marley and my mother. That's a connection, Bob Marley and my mom. Dad, he has made up his own lullabies that I probably won't share here. He's a colorful character, but yeah, it's good to have joy in the music too. But
Right.
yeah, where I thought possibly it would be interesting also to invite you to, or well, not invite you, but wondering how you chose in your scene changes in your plays. So
Mm.
Jake's kind of like a one-man show, basically. What type of theater would you call that? Is that black box or what's black?
I just think it's a one-hander, is what
Okay.
theater
One-hander.
might say. Although
Yeah.
I do want to point out that Violet Roseman creates amazing sonic accompaniment for me,
Yes.
Yeah.
and
So
has in every show that I've done.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's sort of where I was going. So Jake's up to sharing his story and sharing and how you sort of chose to have kind of your scene done in this way, because really it's sort of like a sound healing in the in between.
Right.
Yeah, just for anybody listening, so Violet plays handpan and chimes and a bunch of other beautiful sound healing
Bowls.
instruments. So she's
Singing bowls.
providing these soundscapes that Justine's mentioning between Jake's scenes.
Yeah.
And Violet does happen to be my ex-daughter-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
who I love as a daughter. So it's
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
it's amazing to have her on the show, particularly given the subject matter.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, in terms of the scene changes, honestly, when first started developing this, it was really I can't just stop a story and then start a story, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted there to be a break, and so almost instantly, Violet and I were having that conversation, and she said, "Oh, I'd love to be a part of the show." I said, "Okay, that will work for me," and it has and continues to make it slightly more performative beyond just storytelling than the changing a few little, a hat or a jacket or a shirt or whatever, just allows for the creation of a new moment and a new space without going into a new space. And so we don't, there's no other props on stage other than some clothes and some things that I sit on. So it was really the desire and the intent was to keep it as simple as possible, but try to create a clear sense that we're now moving from where we were to where we're now going. Mm. And so hats are sort of one way, there are different kinds of hats. And as you know, from the one story about me being in a canoe, a mentor of mine was the one who suggested, well, why don't you turn that bench into a canoe and paddle the canoe rather than just standing and telling the story? And I thought, how cool is that? And so we do that, but I couldn't be wearing a winter coat while I was doing that. So
that's right.
Underneath everything else, I had to have a t-shirt.
Well, it's a beautiful way to transition between the scenes, because the soundscapes offer also like a reflective moment, or like it offers so many different things. Like, yes, it's a change of scene. It also lets maybe the story you had said sort of sink in.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was
exactly. That's a very good observation. I think that's true. It sinks in, and I also have a chance to allow that to wash out of me and prepare myself for the next story as well. Yeah.
What's
everybody
really,
has a chance.
Yeah. What's really nice too with what Violet provides with your play is that it's not like she's not playing very, very recognizable instruments. So she's not up there playing guitar or piano or something, which are of course amazingly beautiful and powerful instruments. But by using these instruments that people aren't necessarily completely familiar with, it really opens the space even more up. So you're not what I was just kind of alluding to with like the House of the Rising Sun and my dad. We can have connections to guitar or these other types of instruments we've heard so many times. So by using instruments that we don't have this experience, it really opens curiosity, I think, for people that are attending your play as well in a different way than it would with a traditional instrument. So it's really an awesome, almost an accident. It sounds like, or just, how it happened, you and Violet.
It's just how it happened.
Exactly. It really works well. It's really, really
well. That's helpful feedback. Thank you, Jay. Appreciate that.
You're most welcome.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got your book, Opening to the Mystery. You've got the play that you offer. Do you offer, if people were to get in touch, is this something that you would offer? Or is it a regular thing, or how would people see this play if they wanted to, your work?
Well, yeah. So all they got to do is get in touch with me and tell me they have an audience, and I will be there.
Amazing.
Both Violet and I see this as being something we're supposed to be doing, and I mean supposed in a lovely way, not as being onerous. This is a significant piece of why I am alive. I do not feel inclined to go out and beat a lot of marketing drums to make those things happen. I'm quite happy to let them arise. I'm getting slightly more active at doing that, but I really don't want this to become a machine. I want it to remain as organic as it is, and still allow as many people as possible to have the experience, to hear the stories, and all of that. So if people wanted to have a show on, doesn't take very many people, as you know. The show that you saw, there might have been like 12 people or 15 people or something like that. That's just fine. We've also performed for almost 100, and that also is fine. And so many of the shows have been sort of maybe the audience has been 30 to 40 people. Also fine. The numbers really are not so important as having the opportunity to tell the stories and to create the experience for people, and allow people the chance to either be opened or to express their openness to others.
Right. Yeah. And for folks that can't attend, who are listening, from afar or haven't had the opportunity, your book does a great job too in sharing a lot of this these lessons and this teaching that you're sharing with people. Right. Are people able to buy your book? Is it online?
They are able to buy it, and it's embarrassing at this juncture that I still have not put it online. But I am, before the day is out, talking to the fellow who took care of the printing of the book, who also knows how to get it onto Amazon. And so it is my hope that sometime in the near future, because I don't think it's going to take very much, it's all ready to kind of go, for it to be available on Amazon. But right now, if somebody wanted a book, they can get in touch with me. If you're somehow putting up my email address, sure. I'd be delighted to hear from folks. But I think I pretty much have got to move beyond, Jake and his box of books in the back of his car.
Yeah, share it with the world, Jake. Share it with the world. Yeah, so we'll put your contact info in the show notes for this podcast, so anybody that's interested can just scroll down and connect with you there.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah, we're again so grateful that you joined us on the podcast, Jake, and we really are fans of your work and what you're sharing. It's so important and so needed, especially right now. I think it really struck a chord, I know, for me, and it would for many folks listening. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with us.
Yes, thank you. It was a very healing and connecting experience. So we get to heal through your words, and in some way it's still sharing our own experiences. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you both very much. And I do, I'm no spring chicken, obviously, although your audience can't see me, so they don't know that. But I'm not. But I still feel like, if I can put it this way, I'm still strutting through the barnyard of my life, and I just, as I meet people who are generous with their time and resources, it always makes my heart sing. And you too, along with Kathy, are so generous with your time and creating the space that you create and the experience you create. I'm grateful for that, and hope to be able to partake for many years to come.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being on the podcast, Jake.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Echoes of Alchemy with Lotus Sound. Be sure to follow, rate, and share, and unlock your sonic cosmic archetype with our free planetary pulse quiz at lotussound.ca, and discover what planetary energy you are most in alignment with right now, as well as what musical mode you are most in tune with, lotussound.ca. And for our 3-day sound immersion training, deep dive into sound bath artistry, visit lotussound.ca/sound training. We've got FAQs up there, video, testimonials, and all kinds of details. We'd love to have you join us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you soon.